Hello and welcome back to this live edition of Nevermind The Bookkeeper. I'm Emma from Outside the Bubble and I'll be joined today by my regular co-hosts Marti and Declan of Morris Palmer, and alongside them we'll also have very, very special guests. Now, the last few weeks, months, some might even say a year, and boy, has it felt like a year, we have been awash with being marched up the hill, marched down the hill. We have had smorgasbords, we have had bracing for potential manifesto promises that will be unmade. We have, up until last night, I believe, had a pick and mix of what we can expect today. From my perspective, I would like to see some clarity and some closure for businesses, especially in the SME place. As someone that works with SMEs, entrepreneurs and owner-managers, I can genuinely say this last year has been nothing but rock bottom for them. Never in my time have I seen boardrooms sit there and actually decide that no decision is the best decision. So I'm optimistic or hopeful that the Chancellor and the government have heard the words of the SMEs, have heard the words of businesses, and hopefully have something in there for us to make next year a little bit better. Because without businesses, without the SME market in particular, we can't achieve any growth. So fingers crossed, in the next half hour, we find out what is and isn't in Rachel's budget. Without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Marti, who's going to introduce you to our very special first guest. Marti.
Hi, thank you, Emma, for the lovely introduction. I'm joined here today by Declan, who you would have seen before,
Hello there.
One of my colleagues, and Josh from Harris Wickens. And today we're just going to have a general chat about what we're expecting to see in the budget, what we want to see, what we don't want to see. So Josh, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and about Harris Wickens?
Yeah, of course, thank you. So,
it's all right.
My name's Josh Harris. I founded Harris Wickens Estate Agents in August 2023. So we're almost 2.5 years old now, and I wanted to do it to be a little bit different to, I guess, what I felt currently was offered in the local marketplace. It's been a busy couple of years. It's been an interesting couple of years, and I think there's never a good time to start a business. Probably there's always a reason not
exactly
to.
That.
But I think, doing it when we did got us off to a good foundation.
I think you've done amazing with it. Absolutely amazing. You know, and you've come you were more corporate, weren't you? And you've brought a far more, what I feel like a more personal feel to your business.
It was a local company I worked for, but maybe with a slightly more corporate feel.
It felt a little bit more, but I just think you've got that really nice personal touch with it. And you know, the reaction you get from people locally, that seems to be what I think they think of you. Harris Wickens.
Well, the service side of it was always what we wanted to focus on, with limited client pool at any one time, not having weekend or part-time staff, so that those who dealt with us dealt with an expert rather than somebody who was not as experienced or well-versed in looking after someone's most expensive asset in most cases. Yeah,
exactly that. So, we're here for the budget today. What are we worried about? What are we expecting to see?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we really were interested to know specifically, obviously, in your industry, Josh, what is affecting you and your clients at the moment, and what you may anticipate that could happen in the next half an hour or so.
I suppose that's stamp duty.
Stamp duty is definitely the thing on I think everybody's lips.
Yeah.
I think the sort of paralysis through uncertainty is the way that we're describing it. So I think if you took from probably August 24, when the first base rate came, when it got from the height of 5.25 downwards, to September, end of September, there was a lot more positivity, a lot more enthusiasm towards the marketplace. But I think with this year, with October and November being quieter as a result of the delayed budget being right at the end of November,
everyone's just stopping,
just putting a pause on it.
Exactly that. And I think actually Emma was just saying a minute ago, with other businesses, that's the point. People can't make decisions. They don't know what to do, so they do nothing.
You can't be sure of what's right because you don't know what's going to come today.
Yeah, exactly that.
And I mean, that's what we're seeing at the moment, isn't it? The implications of people's the unknown holding back on those big decisions decisions, which ultimately the buying and selling of property is one of the biggest decisions that individuals make.
Yeah, exactly. It is your biggest personal asset, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's so important. What are you seeing in the market then at the moment? How's it feel in the market? Who's buying, who's selling?
Yeah, I think so. For a little while now, the investment market has slowed. There's obviously higher taxes from stamp duty and less tax efficient as a.
We've seen that as a
landlord.
business side and accountant side.
They've also got the Renters' Bright Bill coming in, which again will be another hurdle for that market to jump through. First-time buyers, in March this year, the stamp duty levels changed a little bit to have slightly earlier levels of tax coming in. So we saw a surge in purchases before the end of March, start of April. And again, I just think, so October and November sales-wise have been quieter, but exchanges have been really good because they were the sales that were agreed 3 months prior.
Exactly that. And so with specifically the stamp duty, what about like first-time buyers? How do you feel? Are you seeing a lot of first-time buyers? Are you seeing those?
A good amount.
Okay, that's good.
First-time
That's
buyers
positive.
don't pay stamp duty on the first £300,000 anyway.
And do you think that might change? Any predictions?
I don't know. I'm not sure, but I think that already changed in March this year anyway. So that came down from 425 to 300. Yeah. So they've already taxed, in theory, first-time buyers a little more than they
so
would
you
have
feel
done.
perhaps maybe that's enough for that.
They want to encourage hopefully the bottom end of the activity price-wise.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah, but then general home movers, because Horsham is a lovely family town, great market town.
Much so.
Great schooling, great connections, great commuter links. There's always a demand in Horsham, whether it's from local buyers staying here or people moving to the area as well.
Yeah. And so what are you seeing move quickly in the market at the moment in terms of house-wise?
I guess
flats,
the most
semi-detached, big houses?
popular price range will be the £400,000 to £600,000 bracket.
So the sort of bigger family home.
Yeah, but the average price of a house in Horsham is probably north of 500, 550 now anyway. So it sounds like a lot of money, but it is the mass middle market now.
Yeah, with you.
So that's probably where the greatest activity is, because one, it's where the most type of buyer sits, but also where there is the highest volume of that style of home as well. So that'll get you anything from 3-bed terrace semi to small 3-4 bedroom detached.
Okay. That's quite scary.
Yes, it's a lot of money.
It is, isn't it? And you can see why, people are fearing what's going to happen, because already people don't have a lot of money and they're worried about what they're going to be doing.
Well, that's it. It's affecting buying habits and attitudes to, do you hold what you have, or can you make that next step? And a lot of people are holding off, particularly for whatever's announced today.
And it's for rumours. It's for rumours that sort of squash it, because they've made it clear they're likely to do something, drip-fed a few possibilities. They all sound a little bit daunting depending on which side of the fence you sit with things, but that's what's causing them people to wait, because they just want to know how it will impact or when it will impact.
Exactly. And I think it is difficult to know. I was a bit naive to it, but I didn't realise the things they leak to the public as such are potentially leaked on purpose to sort of feed,
exactly that. To acceptance of these policies.
A bit like with the income tax increases. It seemed that was leaked and it didn't go down very well. And then it was reversed again. Exactly.
It's interesting when Josh refers to the slowing down of the investor side of the market in terms of buying second properties, and my theory of whether the rents start falling within NI.
This was one of Declan's predictions.
In the previous podcast. So I personally would be interested to see whether that is possibly a main reason for why we've seen that, and Josh has seen that in his industry.
So that's, just to recap, you were essentially saying that there may be national insurance being charged on the rental profit.
Yes, I'm not claiming it's an original idea, but it's just one that I thought made logical sense with the way the NMTB is coming in
I agree
and
with
how it all ties up.
Interesting to see.
A reporting point of view.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, thank you both for that little chat. I think we will pass over to Emma and she can introduce our guest. Thank you.
Hello and welcome back, and thank you, Marti. For anybody that is watching on LinkedIn, we are going to move the stream just to YouTube, just because we've had some feedback that the teleprompter is a little bit jerky and it's a little unsettled. So there will be a message going up shortly, moving everybody over to YouTube. So if you could move, that would be great. Now, our second special guest, and a good friend of mine, James Tutton of Move Group. James, I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag. Tell us what you do.
Thanks, Emma. So my name is James Tutton. I'm the Managing Director of Move Group. And we are a group of multi-brand removals and storage companies based mostly in Essex, East London and Suffolk. We do domestic relocations and storage and services around that kind of thing. And yeah, it started up, it was just a very grassroots 18 years ago. I left the army at 26 and I literally bought a van, put an ad in the paper, got on my bike and literally cycled around my local estate to deliver leaflets to say that I could move them. And then over time, the company's really grown and like I said, we're now 4 brands. Currently, we employ just shy of 40 people. So we sit very much in the SME bandwidth, I guess. And yeah, I'm looking to acquire more businesses in the group over the next 10 years. I've got big ambitions and I'm really interested to see what's going to be announced today.
Brilliant. I think we all are.
Yeah.
So how has demand in the last 12 months changed? Have you noticed anything economically?
So to be honest, it's largely the same. Only that we are affected once a budget happens, I guess. And I guess there has been a lull in people sort of looking for a new home leading up to this particular budget. But we're now dealing with people that have sold their home, say, 6 months ago.
Right.
You know, when this really wasn't on anyone's main sort of like headline, I guess. They weren't really looking at this particular thing. So we're anticipating that we will see a drop-off in the early part of next year, only because of people putting their plans on hold whilst they're waiting to see what's being announced today.
Because I know off air we were talking to Josh, because you and Josh are quite aligned in terms of what he sells, you deliver, I guess, is a nice way to put it.
Absolutely.
And I know Josh was saying earlier that, you know, this last quarter has been quite tough, so that won't potentially impact you for another 3-6 months potentially?
Yeah, probably I think we'll start in January.
Okay.
January and last, probably for January to March, I'd say.
Okay.
And then like a new norm will take place.
And do you typically have a boom period? Because I can imagine people, especially with children, maybe are quite selective with how they choose to move home.
Yeah, certainly. There's definitely the peak of the season is in the summer months for sure. And the latter half of each year, so the last 6 months of each year, we do the most of our business. That's where we make most of our money. That's what pays for the quiet winter months, and that has always been the case. Apart from those odd years around post-COVID when there was kind of strange booms and lulls. But typically, it kicks off in sort of like June time and it doesn't really stop until Christmas.
Amazing. And are you what types of moves are you seeing? Are you seeing upsizing, downsizing, relocations, or is it all much the same?
Much the same, yeah. It's all much the same. So every move has a story behind it, and there's tens of thousands of different stories on why people want to move home, want to buy and sell a home and then move. Those things are largely for us, for the clients that we're seeing, are largely the same.
Okay.
But again, I think in the coming few months, I think we'll see a different landscape.
And I suppose last budget might have been a bit of a shock to you with the employer NI increase.
Yep.
What generally in your industry are the biggest operational pressures that you're currently under?
Biggest operational, probably finding good quality staff, I guess, to carry out the work that we want them to do. That's probably a good thing, because it shows that there's lots of demand and we need those staff to carry out those moves for us. So that's probably the biggest operational challenge we have at the moment. Come early part of next year, like I've already said, I think an operational challenge we might have is how do we sort of navigate the business financially through quite a severe lull in revenue, perhaps, people moving, waiting for a new normal to start off in spring. And
what, you talk about that lull, can you quantify that in percentage terms of what that might look like or what you're expecting?
Josh might be the better person to answer that one, because he is sort of 2-3 months ahead of me. So if he's seen a 30%, which I think he's kind of mentioned, Josh, would you say 30%? Sorry. So yeah, if there is a sort of a percentage drop off with the estate agency market, then that would just feed directly for you to move in industry.
Okay. And have you noticed any shift in the proportion of residential versus commercial moves? Because everyone keeps saying, there's lots of empty high streets, people are working from home, businesses are actually trying to, I suppose, decide whether they need physical premises anymore. What's the ratio in your business?
Yeah, so the change happened just after COVID, really, with the advent of mainstream working at home and that sort of thing. So that's already happened generally. From what we can see in our business, it's again largely the same, that the percentages between the amount of homes that we move and the amount of businesses we move is largely pretty much the same.
Okay.
Yep.
And one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on today was because you've had a really successful year despite all the challenges that have come economically. How is competition in the removal space changing, or at least for you?
Well, that sounds like a bore. It's largely the same. So the competition landscape, where we have people that are peer-to-peer competitors, we have people that target the lower end of the market, your man, the vans. There's very, very little barriers of entry to becoming a mover. Therefore, there are a lot of smaller companies out there that will give you the cheapest price. That's not an area that we sort of operate in because it's just not a viable model for like a larger company. But yeah, so fundamentally, it's pretty much the same.
But you've had quite a lot of success with a M&A growth strategy, haven't you? You've been buying companies up, which has been quite fortuitous for you.
Yeah, it's been great. I find that there's a lot of companies that are approaching us that want to sell because a smaller business that have the same struggles and overheads that we all have, and it's very hard for them to make any sort of sizable sort of profit at the bottom end. The owners want to exit, they want to do something new or retire. It's quite a common one, and then we're happy to buy those sorts of businesses at a fair price, and then we make them viable because they join our group. We centralise all the overheads, and then all of a sudden something that was struggling before can now flourish as part of a larger organisation.
And I think you take your movers quite seriously, don't you, in terms of who you employ? Like, not anyone can come and be a mover for you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you want to just maybe share some of, like, the piano in your office is one of the most funniest things I ever see.
Okay.
If you could share with us, some of the training you do, because I think this is what makes you so different.
I guess so. We do lots of training in-house. We send people out on courses as well, but we do have a piano in the office because piano is the most typical thing that people get to move that's quite heavy. And yeah, it's a little test when someone wants to join our company to see if they can pick up their end of the piano.
And have you noticed customers becoming maybe more cost conscious? I mean, I know you're quite clear on what your strategy is, who are the target customers, but do you feel that people are shopping around more, or do you think when they found the one they know that you're the one?
Yeah, weirdly I think where we operate in Essex, we're in like a little microclimate. I think because we have the routes into London, so there is a vibrant kind of like a mini economy in our area. So largely people, I think, are still happy to pay for a premium service. But I think other parts of the country, people are feeling the squeeze more so. And I can imagine the companies that operate in those areas would definitely see some kind of downturn in sort of the level of service that people really want, and perhaps they would try and go for the cheaper option.
And we hear quite a lot about, the geographic divide. In your experience of the industry, how real is that?
Yeah, it's quite real. Yeah. So the southeast and East Anglia, the south coast, has always done fairly well, I guess, even through some tough times. I know in some more northern areas, they when like a hit comes, it's definitely felt harder.
Right. Okay. So this kind of this north-south divide actually is a real living thing that, even you in your industry can see.
I think so, yes.
And with your M&A structure and approach, the further north you go, how viable is that as a strategy?
Yeah. So our strategy is really, we need to look at a density of homes that have a disposable income. Mm-hmm. So there's no point going into, say, north-west Scotland and there's one home that has a disposable income. And likewise, there's no point going into a city where there's plenty of homes but no one has any disposable income, because the part of the market in which we operate.
Okay. So coming on to the budget and why you're here today, what would you like to see in the budget today? What would be a big tick for you?
Many things. I guess a broad stroke answer on that question would be I would like to see the government to not do what we're anticipating by just taxing the rich. Mm-hmm. I'd like to see an actual plan on how they're going to stimulate the wider economy, so we can all flourish. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. And do you see that happening?
No.
Are you one of these? Are you one of these SMEs that are actually slightly dreading today?
I'm dreading it a little bit, yes, but I'd sooner know the truth so I can then make the right plans for my business than the last few months where we've just been sitting on our hands. Mm-hmm.
And I think, I said in my intro that SMEs have never been quite so focused in on budgets. Mm-hmm. I know in my career it's been one of those things that just happen and SMEs work round or with or benefit from.
Yeah.
This has obviously been highly anticipated.
Highly, yes.
How much political reading have you been doing of late? And how much do you find this budget might, how much interest do you have in this budget?
Lots more than normal, I guess, because I don't think I can remember a budget where it was so highly anticipated. I can talk for ourselves that we have put off making any serious business changes or purchases or decisions until this is done, and we know what's going to happen, and we can plan accordingly then, and then plan our investment for when it's going to be right for the business.
Because it's one of those things where doing nothing really isn't a strategy. If anything, it potentially leads to stagnation, and you, like many, have staved off, I guess, making any decisions until today is finalised. Yep. And as I said, I hope there is some clarity. Whether we'll get some or not will be a whole different kettle of fish, but who knows? Yeah. Are you expecting any changes to fuel duty or environmental regulations that could impact your cost base next year?
I don't know on that one. I can answer the fact that if those things were to come, if there was a cost that were brought to my business for that sort of thing, then we would just have to adapt our prices to cover the cost. Mm-hmm. We can't just simply carry on like absorbing things indefinitely,
Do you feel there's an expectation from the government that businesses should just absorb the costs they're pushing on and not push them onto consumers?
Yeah, I think so. I think this is something that we should all just swallow and not pass on, which is just crazy, because I know lots of businesses just don't have a massive pool of cash just laying around doing nothing. It's just kind of it's a common misconception, I think.
Absolutely, and obviously fleet is a big part of what you do outside of fuel.
20 vehicles, yeah.
20 vehicles.
Yeah.
Would any incentives for fleet electrification or grants for greener vehicles make a meaningful difference to your planning? Because you have got some EVs in your fleet.
Yeah,
that's
small
correct,
ones.
Isn't it?
Yeah, and the small ones are really good, and they're already very effective. The overall fleet, to next step up, the sort of large van or small lorry, there are already incentives out there. There are already grants that are available. But when you look at the two deals side by side, the fact that the battery-powered vehicle is so much more expensive despite the grant, but then you calculate in the difference in cost in fuel and maintenance, that sort of thing, there is a small benefit to having a EV vehicle on the fleet, or what's available out there right now. It's not huge. And also then you're left with uncertainty. So what would be the resale of that vehicle 7-10 years down the line? How much will be left over in its in its value? So at the moment it's not there, and it'd be great if there was more, for sure. Then it'd make those vehicles really viable, and I'm personally a big fan of going all battery powered, for sure. But the larger trucks, for sure, that's a long way off yet. I've been doing a bit of research. I've been in a couple of talks on that sort of thing, and we're quite a ways away from having fully electric massive trucks, unfortunately.
I'm sure it will get there.
Yeah, hopefully.
So with last question, because I'm being harangued by Sam, our expert behind the camera. Are you concerned about potential tax changes affecting staff or subcontractors' costs?
Could you elaborate a little bit on that question?
Well, I suppose last year we kind of got, blindsided by this employer NI costs.
Yeah.
If the Chancellor was to pull out anything of her briefcase this afternoon that would impact, I suppose, changes to staff, so maybe an income tax increase, or, subcontractors needing to pay different types of taxes.
Yeah, it wouldn't be good. It wouldn't be good, but I think...
Do you have a large subcontractor base?
We have a few, but they're mostly PAYE.
Okay.
But yeah, if something were to come down the line on that sort of ilk, then I think we would just have to roll with the punches, just like we did before. I'm more concerned about what's going to happen around property, taxation, stamp duty, that sort of thing.
Okay, so we've just had a few leaked topics from this OBR report, which you're probably seeing has obviously been released early. And there's a couple of quite insightful points, I think, that we can chat about. And the first one actually is one that I'm a little bit annoyed about, is this pay per mile on electric vehicles, because I've just bought an electric car. And I've told a lot of my clients to go and buy electric cars because they're so tax efficient. I've probably told you that, Josh, as well. And you're going, thank God I didn't listen to her. But yeah, and obviously I think the fact that they're now saying, and obviously it's obviously been in this OBR report, that they are going to tax people per mileage done with an electric vehicle, does seem a bit of a kick in the...
Yeah, I sort of take it as a bit of a mixed message, really.
I agree.
Up until now, it's definitely the favourable way to go from a benefit in kind point of view.
Exactly. The capital allowances, if you're buying it outright.
For corporation tax. And then to now sort of go back on that word and sort of plug the gap that they've obviously got this shortfall where more people are moving to electric vehicles and they're not getting the same duty that they were on the petrol and diesel. But they're still maintaining the grants to incentivise people to move to electric. So it does seem to be.
You're right. It's a little bit mixed message, I think, and I just think a lot of people will have gone out and spent a lot of money on electric vehicles because of all those reasons you've just said, being so tax efficient. To then put something in so early, I just think with these sorts of things, generally, like the benefit in kind, for example, is 3% on an electric vehicle at the moment. I don't know if you'd actually know much about that, Josh, but
not a great deal,
for petrol and diesel cars, it could be as high as 37%. So 3%.
Right, okay. It's a big gap.
It's a big difference and a huge incentive. And I think people expect at least a few years of that, don't they, to get your incentives and your tax
it's a big commitment. You've made that move.
Exactly.
You've had to sort out your infrastructure to cater to have one of these.
100%.
To suddenly then be
taxed on it.
Obviously, there appears to still be an advantage, and the idea being that it's not purely financially motivated. There's an environmental impact from these things.
Very good point, Declan.
And that's obviously what the main goal was. But obviously, they now have this massive deficit they're trying to plug. That they've somewhat increased by encouraging everybody to move and then not having these extra duties on the mileage.
And what we don't know yet is when that will come in. So we know it's in some way leaked within this OBR report, but we don't actually know.
Is that on personal business cars or both? Or we don't know?
It would. Well, I think it would be on all actually. I don't think there's any.
Any owner of an electric vehicle would be affected by this.
Liable to pay it. Yeah, I suppose it's just the businesses have had all the tax advantages from buying the electric cars. So, So yeah, we'll wait and see what they announce in terms of dates that it will come in. But obviously, it's something there that. People will have mixed feelings on it. Some people are very anti-electric anyway, so others, will have a bit of a stronger
add strings to
feeling
their
on
bow
it.
to argue against the case, I suppose.
Well, I think you might be right with that. Yeah. The other one, which I think is far more important and affects everyone, whether you're a business owner personally, is they've said that income tax thresholds will be frozen for the next 3 years. And that, I always find that such a sneaky one, because they're not putting income tax up, which is obviously, you've probably heard recently, they talked about putting it up and then they came back and said, no, we're not going to touch it. But by freezing tax thresholds, you're pushing people potentially into the next tax threshold and paying more tax potentially. So it has an effect on everyone, but people maybe aren't quite as aware of the effect that it will have on them as just putting income tax up.
Like you said, the sneaky aspect to it is, are they technically sort of going on the argument that we haven't touched the rates?
Exactly.
And we promised we wouldn't do that as part of our manifesto.
But inflation is pushing salaries up, minimum wages coming up, all of these things.
You are taxed more.
You are, because exactly that, it could push you into the next tax threshold.
Right, yeah.
You said actually there might be some people that are still earning under the personal allowance, which is
so they go from tax-free to suddenly they are contributing, paying tax.
Yeah. Or you've probably got the more, I don't know if normal is the right word, but the more standard situation that I see where people are what we call basic rate taxpayers, so earning just below 50,000 or maybe in that 40,000, 30, 40,000. I suppose in this case it would have been 40,000, and they could get pushed into the higher rate of tax. So suddenly they're going from paying 20% to 40%. And that's a big jump, isn't it? Yeah. And that's where I think people are less aware of what keeping the tax thresholds the same actually means. But on the surface, people are like, they haven't put income tax up. So
and
it's a better headline, isn't it?
It's a better headline.
And there's sort of my concern with sending the wrong message to the economy and small local businesses in terms of growth and expansion, knowing that it's going to sort of put the brakes on again because, should we or shouldn't we? Suddenly we're paying higher rates of tax that we weren't expecting because we're in the next threshold. Exactly
that. So I think that is, for me, that's a really important one. Obviously, we'll wait and see how they actually sort of announce it technically in the budget, but according to what's been leaked, that is what's happening. And I think will affect a lot of people quite detrimentally.
Thank you, Marti, for all of your wise wisdom there. As we know, the OBR have leaked early, and they have announced that fuel duty is frozen until September 2026. So good news for small businesses. James, how does this benefit you?
I guess we can keep our charging per mile largely the same, because the cost to us will hopefully be the same. But it's obviously market dependent on the cost of oil. Yeah. Okay. That is a welcome outcome, for sure.
And I think in the other room, the guys were just talking about the EV pay per mile charge.
Right.
I think that's correct. Marti, that was correct, wasn't it? The pay per mile on the EV charge? Yeah. So that's been leaked.
Okay.
So how does that impact the smaller vans?
That will make them less viable, I guess. Yeah. So I'd have to look at the details of what's going to be charged, but I guess anything where it's already on the cusp of being viable or not, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, then I think a lot of businesses will be pausing.
I think that just goes back to the conversation we were having before the budget started, was that the difference between diesel and EV in terms of incentive packages. This might actually just be tilting the balance. So people that are looking to update their fleet, update their, might be looking at maybe second-hand diesel vehicles over EVs, despite that. Because that's what I was getting the impression from you when you've done all your calculations, that actually it's whisper thin.
Very, very whisper thin already. So yeah, I can imagine that's not going to work in favour for the EV industry and for the greening objectives of the government.
I was going to say the automotive industry is already starting to slow down in terms of EV sales. And so do you think this might be the thing that actually makes people pause again when looking at fleet?
Again, I'd have to look at what's being charged and how much it is and that sort of thing. But yeah, like I said, it doesn't sound good.
No.
You know, it's definitely a negative outcome for sure.
I know there was a lot of talk about the pay per mile. How would that impact you as an individual? Because you also have an electric car personally, don't you?
I do. Yes, that's right. I do about 15,000 miles a year. If you know, again, I took the deal. If there's like of a cost, you know, something gets taken away from like the road tax, for example, or some cost somewhere else, and then it's then more of a fairer per cost per mile. So only those that drive the most pay the most. Then maybe that's probably a good thing in some ways. But you can't just keep on adding costs on top of the existing costs. Is my feeling, because that's going to have a negative impact all around.
And I know the government's whole raison d'etre has been to not impact working people, but I would have thought working people probably do have electric cars.
Plenty.
So
Yeah.
there is a direct implication here.
Absolutely. Thankfully, they're in the mainstream now for sure, and become more and more common. So yeah, it will impact everyone for sure.
So salary sacrifice is where it sort of does what it says. You sacrifice some of your salary in return for something else. So in terms of pensions, you're sacrificing some of your salary to put it into a pension. So that means you are receiving less salary, and therefore you're not paying PAYE national insurance on that bit of salary that you're sacrificing to put it into a pension or whatever you're doing with it. And from a business, from an employer point of view, you're therefore not paying national insurance, employers' national insurance, on that element that's going into pension or whatever. And from what I can see, and I haven't seen the detail yet, but in this leaked OBR report, it sounds like they are restricting that.
Yeah, I mean, to now, there's not been a limit on these things.
No.
So that's the key, where they're going to really restrict what you can do with that scheme that's been so valuable to so many.
Exactly. And we don't know quite yet how much they're restricting that, but that's essentially what it sounds like they're going to do, is just put I think probably a small limit. I did read last night maybe like a £2,000 limit on what you could then salary sacrifice into a pension scheme.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know what the average has been to date, to know how much effect that will have.
I don't know. And obviously that's, not just business, it's employees, it will affect a lot of people who do it from a tax planning point of view. Because obviously it's keeping their salary lower, it's potentially not pushing them into higher rates of tax because their salary, exactly that, because they're sacrificing some of their salary that may push them into those higher rates of tax. So it will have an impact, but I think we'll come back to it once we know what it's actually going to be restricted to.
Fantastic. So while the OBR have been busy leaking, we thought we would lead with a Daily Mail headline, which is 1 in 4 workers faces paying higher tax by 2030. So thoughts and reflections on that? Do you think that's a true representation, that only 1 in 4 workers, or would you think that would be a bit higher?
It seems very low to me. It's 2030, you're saying. So I think we'd all be paying more tax by 2030. I can't imagine an economy where we wouldn't be.
Not considering the rates have been frozen for some time, and it hasn't been announced yet, but we are expecting them to be frozen for 29 into 2030, which will again create the fiscal drag that automatically raises more tax.
Absolutely.
So how do you feel about that? Because I know I've seen some articles that were basically saying that once upon a time it was a tiny percentage of people that would end up being higher tax payers, and now actually it's just regular everyday people being caught in that trap.
That's it, because they've frozen the thresholds for a long time, and just with inflation and just wage increases, it's becoming more and more the mainstream. Everyone's getting taxed more. It doesn't matter who you are. If just running like a normal family home, you need minimum £50,000 a year just to live a decent life, and that's now falling into the high tax bracket.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Marti, I was just wondering, do you want to come and join us on the sofa? And I was going to ask, how many people does it affect for you in terms of payroll? Because you look after a lot of businesses' payroll. There is room for you. Come on,
join us.
Have a pew. Squeeze in.
Hello. Nice to join you on this sofa.
Thank you.
Sorry, I missed that question.
It was
Emma.
1 in 4 workers face paying higher tax by 2020. By 2030.
Is this because of fiscal drag and essentially freezing the income tax
freezing
threshold?
income tax?
Yeah.
What will that do to your client base? If you just think about, because you do a lot of payroll,
We
don't you?
do a lot of payrolls for people, yeah. So obviously you're just seeing like the workers, if you like, and but even if when I just look at my own clients, I suppose I think it's going to have a huge effect on people. You know, people are already struggling, and to then be paying potentially going from 20% to 40%, that's a really big
big
difference.
jump.
It's a big jump, isn't
Yeah.
it? And that's going to have a really big impact, I think, on a lot of people. But like I was saying earlier, I just think it's an easy way for them to do it because people they're not raising income tax, so therefore people accept it a little bit easier by just keeping thresholds where they are. But, you know, with inflation and with the minimum wage going up, and that's gone up a lot over recent years, that in itself is, you know, pushing people's salaries up quite a lot.
Dare I say a stealth tax? Would you say, you know, by you freezing those thresholds?
Yeah.
No, that just bringing that on
Yeah,
without even
exactly,
having to
yeah.
announce it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah, completely agree. So is that 1 in 4 workers? They're
1
saying?
in 4 workers, they're saying. So that's
Yeah,
25%.
Yeah, that's a huge percentage,
a huge
isn't it?
amount of people.
Yeah.
I think the other point is that I suppose when you used to be classed as a higher rate taxpayer, that actually meant something in terms of, you know.
Yeah, it was more the wealthy, wasn't it?
It's more the wealthy,
Yeah.
not a status symbol, but a symbol of wealth.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
And now it's just actually everyday people.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
you and I have had the conversation many times about how you go to Tesco's and you can't walk out of there £100 shorter.
No, exactly.
So when people do face this, if you think about it, the tax thresholds have been frozen for such a considerable amount of time.
I don't know how many years it's been now, but it's been quite a few years, hasn't it? It's just that complete freeze on them. Yeah.
And I think why this is one of those crafty taxes is that when people get paid more money and they do jump from that 20 to 40, they just see more money that comes into their bank. So they haven't actually had anything taken away from them
100%.
per se.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting because I believe it was the Labour government that actually turned around and said that they weren't going to freeze the allowances, and what they were going to do was essentially unfreeze them.
Okay.
So that more working people, back to that working people conversation and dynamic again, were going to be able to have more money.
Yeah.
So this is not happening.
It's not, no, it's not. And I think, you know, people, when they realise it, they won't take it very well.
No, definitely not.
No.
It's one way of making yourself more unpopular, hey?
Exactly that.
So we are actually watching it live, and she hasn't started yet, has she?
There's a lot of gumph.
There's been a lot of waffle, as Kemi Badenoch said the other day. It was a great big waffle bomb, and I love that waffle bomb.
It's
That needs to come into the everyday vernacular.
Definitely. I've been looking now and just reading it, but I really can't see a huge amount of detail. Actually, just jumping back to, you asked me about the salary sacrifice, and I was just having a quick look at that, and I said just then I'd read yesterday about capping it like a £2,000 pension contribution. I think that is right, actually, from what I saw, so I think that's what it's going to be capped
So then
to.
you can only sacrifice your salary by £2,000.
Yeah, from what I can see. If I see any different,
and what was it previously?
No. Well, it was unrestricted, really, as far as I know.
Wow.
So, you know, that's quite a cap on. And people were using salary sacrifice with pensions as a sort of tax planning tool, I suppose, to potentially stop them going into higher rates, additional rates, all these
that
things.
sticky place after
That's
120,000.
exactly there. Yeah, well, yeah, it's from that 100 to 125.
Yeah.
Where you're in this really high marginal rate of tax.
Is
because
it 60%?
It is. And it's because you're losing your personal allowance. So every £2 of income you earn over 100,000, you lose £1 of your personal allowance.
Yeah.
So by the time you earn 125,000 roughly, you've lost your personal allowance, pretty much. So yes, you're right. That rate of income has this really high marginal rate of tax. So a lot of people used salary sacrifice, pension planning to sort of plan for that, really.
But also from the employer's perspective, because obviously they weren't paying employer
exactly.
NI. So
exactly
in a way, they've now found another way to increase employer NI.
Yeah, true.
So that is going to be quite costly.
Yeah.
Do many of your clients use salary sacrifice?
Yeah, quite a lot do. Yeah, yeah. A lot of more of the personal tax clients we have, where they're, I think they might be employed on a higher salary, might have a rental property, and then are using salary sacrifice to plan and keep themselves out of sort of higher tax with that. By no means the rich or the wealthy, but maybe the ones with another source of income or something like that, or a higher salary,
or just generally doing well for themselves. And
you shouldn't apologise for that. I was saying that in a bit of an apologetic way.
You shouldn't apologise for trying to be aspirational when actually trying to grow something.
Exactly. And it's just another way to sting the people at the top. The most productive of our workforce, that would be just stung again with another tax that's been kind of stealthily brought in there.
It feels quite punitive. Really. You want to go for growth. They had a manifesto of change, and actually it just feels like they're actually just bedding in a bit more from what the Tories left us with.
I agree. It's really hard because you just want someone to come along. I don't know who that person is, not political in that way, but just someone to come along and just sort of inspire the nation and inspire growth and entrepreneurs and positivity. And that's what we're missing at the moment, isn't it? Just a little bit of inspirational positivity rather than the doom and gloom, because a bit like you were saying, Emma, I talk to clients every day and it's just really doom and gloom. And maybe even if this is doom and gloom, even if this budget is doom and gloom, maybe that certainty will bring something. Even if people go, it's awful, but at least we know it's awful now. We know what the baseline, the new baseline is. We move forward from that. So I think there's positivity to come out of today regardless, because there's just going to be answers that people haven't had, even if it's answers that we don't want.
I agree. I think we need like the equivalent of a business barocca, something that's going to make us fizz and be effervescent. I don't know how we're going to do that, but I actually, a business barocca. You've heard that here first.
I've never heard that before. I love it.
Trademark.
Hold that up.
Okay. It already has been.
Oh, okay.
I know. Or it's in the process.
Okay.
What was I going to ask you about salary sacrifice? So business baroccas as in, actually I think whatever happens in this budget, businesses actually probably just need to sit down and go, fuck it. We're actually going to grow. We're actually going to do something despite the government. Because I think we could have potentially another 3 years of this government just, sideswiping business.
No, I agree.
And if you're going to work with that, you might as well have some fun along the way.
Exactly. You can't sit and do nothing, can you? When we know what's going to happen, once we know all of this manifesto, exactly what's going to happen, you've just got to then plan forward with it and move forward.
I think it's always amazing how government haven't really infiltrated business life in terms of decision making, especially at the SME level. I'm not talking about the big corporations and blue chips. I'm talking about everyday businesses like the three of us have.
Exactly.
The budget is neither here nor there, really. There's a little up and there's a little down, and it kind of all evens itself out. I think there is a point where, as business owners and leaders, we have to sit down and go, right, the government aren't just going to help, so how do we grow ourselves out and around this? How do we become agile? How do we become innovative? How do we become aspirational, and I suppose spark aspiration in others? Because that's the other thing. It all feels like, I hate to use the term doom spiral, because I don't want that to now become the new smorgasbord.
That's your second time.
I know, it wasn't on the bloody bingo. It should have been. I would have won by now. But you know what I mean.
No, exactly.
I
agree.
So we need to find it in ourselves, is what you're saying.
I think so.
No one's coming to our rescue for a while.
I'm rubbish with sayings, but is it you take the bull by the horn?
Yeah.
I normally get them wrong. I've said some very wrong ones, actually.
Balls in it somewhere.
Exactly. Horn something. You've got to, haven't you? And
I think so. I think, if you're watching this budget and, you're in an SME and you're not sure about what next year holds, if you've got some time off over Christmas, actually just start thinking about, if you were going to rebuild your business, how would you rebuild it? What would it look like?
Start planning.
And start planning. And actually what I think is maybe a good opportunity to do is to actually start ripping some of the band-aids off within your own businesses and actually using it to dig deep and rebuild better.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think
because
you're right.
this government certainly is not going to help.
No.
Especially with what we've seen in the leaks so far.
Agreed. But we haven't seen everything yet, though.
No, very true.
So maybe there's some good news on the way. Who knows?
Maybe there is some good news on the way.
Positivity, that's what we got.
I am positive to my core.
I don't know whether Declan and Josh may have seen some actual things by now.
Shall we ask? Declan, Josh, has there been any action?
I can scrape a couple of bits together, yeah.
Okay.
Would you like me back or not?
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, it was lovely you joining us.
Do you want to go for a minute, Emma?
Over to the studio?
I was going to say that. I can do. That's all right.
Yeah. I'll let you out.
Fill up a few with James.
I'd like a few more actual specific numbers involved rather than a bit of back and throw with the argument between the political parties.
Yeah. Right.
But the first one that I managed to grab was the cut to the cash ISA down to 12,000 from 20, and who that specifically affects, in a demographic sense, is hard to pinpoint maybe. But in terms of people that are conscious of savings and where they want to put those to limit taxes that they're paying, then obviously that is the idea, presumably, is to push towards the stocks and shares and the more investing of money rather than holding on and saving it in safe areas. So they've somewhat come down in a halfway house maybe, where the cuts were looking to be probably greater than that. I think some of the rumours were 10 or 8,000 they might cut it to. So the 12 may be considered somewhat more favourable potentially. But again, it's going to affect, I know it's only coming in for people below 65, so obviously people's risk profiles change as you get older.
So does that mean that if you're over 65, the 20 is still in place?
That's what I took from that, yeah.
Okay.
And I suppose that the idea being that stocks and shares are more of a long-term beneficial method of saving to get a greater return over a long period. In theory, it spreads that risk. And obviously, the closer you are to retirement and potentially needing access to that money, the less likely you are to risk that capital.
Yes.
When you need short-term wins, really, and you don't know that you might need it in the near future, rather than if I could be beneficial from my point of view, where I can't see the finish line of retirement anytime. So
because you're so young then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I tend to lean towards the idea of the stocks and shares ISA being more potential beneficial to people of my age if you've got the luxury of being able to use that, because it still has that tax advantage of being sheltered from tax, but has the potential for greater growth in the longer term. I think they normally say once you get past that 5 to 10 years, it should, in theory, create a greater return than your standard cash ISAs. And obviously it means what the other side of who's receiving that money, what it can be invested in to try and grow the economy and generate. Because I know a lot of my previous attitudes towards all the leaked rumours were from a negative spin. But obviously they've got to try and generate growth in the economy somehow. And so if that is one method, then I don't want to be necessarily against it, because a lot of the other things seem to be going the other way and restricting and sending the wrong signals for growth for small businesses and individuals.
And I would have thought the thinking behind the reducing the amount so people flush it more into the stocks and shares is to create that growth.
Yeah, exactly.
Is to get that high return, maybe be a bit riskier with your own money in order to win bigger and therefore benefit the government.
Yeah, that's it, and it's that's purely focusing from a cash versus stocks and shares ISA point of view. Of course, there's loads of other options for your savings and excess surplus money, but it's just quite an easy way to compare it, really, where you've got the two ISA products that are on offer, and the restrictions. I haven't seen the specifics in terms of whether there's any change to the blanket 20,000 across the ISAs, and so whether it is still that you could only put 12 in cash and therefore you've still got the 8 to play with for potential stocks and shares ISAs, or whether they've now separated that and you can still do 20 in stocks and shares, but only so I don't know the specifics on that. We'll have to see. But and when that actually comes into fruition, are they implementing it in the following tax year, or is there a bit of grace period for people to plan a little bit further ahead?
And I suppose the benefit to the government here is basically higher capital gains tax revenues?
Yeah, less so from an ISA point of view, because either cash or stocks and shares are going to be tax-free. So if you're in the stocks and shares ISA, you're not paying any capital gains. But yes, if you choose, okay, I can't put it in a cash ISA, but I'm going to invest it in other ways, then that produces the scope for additional revenues from capital gains and the dividends income or something that it might generate if you're holding those stocks and shares rather than a safe cash deposit, as it were.
I was going to say, there's a lot about risk in that, isn't there? That people that want to put their money in cash is because it's less riskier.
Yeah.
Do you see people that, fulfill their £20,000 limit annually suddenly going, do you know what, I'm going to risk my other 8 and put it into stocks and shares?
Well,
is the appetite there?
Well, yeah, I do wonder. I mean, the majority of people that are using ISAs, whether that's just because they've got the luxury of having the ability to do that and more, or it's the majority that are conscious of trying to limit the tax where they can, and they're the main users of it, and then their attitude to risk is probably going to be less so than the regular users of regular stock markets and investing their money in so-called more risky areas. It would definitely influence your average attitude to risk when it comes to what you're doing with your savings. And I suppose their hope by introducing that is that it does stimulate a bit more investment into the economy to generate that growth that's otherwise been somewhat stagnant.
And I suppose slightly related, people that aren't investing their cash, they may want to invest it in something a little bit more safer. Bricks and mortar is always a lovely place.
Traditionally been a lovely place.
What is the split between people just buying residentially to go and live in versus, your buy-to-let?
The Horsham 20 years ago when I joined the industry was an enormous buy-to-let market. There were landlords, regular landlords, who almost were your average Joe employed person, but who had some excess income that could raise funding to get their portfolio going. And across sort of maybe 2007 to 2010, there was an awful lot of expansion, I guess, in that marketplace. That's gradually, with time, I think, diminished, and I think stamp duty has been a big part of that, because originally
you get the extra 3%.
5 now.
It's
as
5.
well. Yeah,
wow.
so it's gradually across the last few years just become much more inefficient tax-wise, and I don't believe there's as much that you can write off against a rental as you used to be able to from an income perspective either. As a result, maybe you see a few more people invest in bigger family homes where they might have put it into an investment differently. But I think, if you had the option a few years ago, I think there would have been a lot more people buying buy-to-lets than there would be today, certainly.
Do you, just as a side note rabbit hole, do you see homes that come with annexes being quite popular as a way of consolidating cash?
They're quite niche, I think. So because most people who buy somewhere that's already got an annex are buying it often because it has a specific need to them.
Right.
So that's where you're looking for the multi-generational living. And sometimes with annexes now, it used to be that you assumed it would be for an older relative. But what you'll often find now is it might be for your 20-something-year-old.
Right, okay.
So it gives them a degree of freedom that if they are maybe in a position to buy, that gives them the doorstep, but giving them their own space, but at the same time maybe that first step of independence, or even if it started as the older relative's place, then became the younger when it became empty, I suppose. Yeah. So a bit more of that, I guess, than specifically looking at the annex as a thing. Because the other side of it is, if people do need the annex, is buying somewhere with a suitable space on the side, or garage conversions or something that gives the opportunity for that. But once you've done it, you've made it quite niche again. So I'd always recommend, if people are buying or converting into annexes, that it's something that has multi-purpose use or the ability to become something else once the annex isn't maybe needed as it was first intended.
And do you have a large buy-to-let roster of clients?
If there's something sensible, there is always people looking.
Okay.
You get a lot less maybe accidental landlords as a result. So
I was one of those.
So there are those who ended up through relationships ending up with 2 properties rather than 1 and things like that. So I think now the landlords we deal with are very calculated and specific about it, and have made a very intentional choice to buy the rental, whereas before people said, oh, I could do this, I didn't really, and someone back in the day would come in and go, right, I've got £250,000 to spend, I want to buy a £250,000 apartment, whereas they would often at the time go, actually, I'll take out 2 125 grand mortgages and have 50% equity in 2 of them to gain 2 incomes rather than 1 or 2 assets of potential growth in value as well. So.
And this leak from the OBR about the ISA, do you see that impacting property at all?
I wouldn't have thought so great.
No,
just because if you're looking at smaller amounts like that, the value you need to put down for a deposit in a loan in a buy-to-let is significant. So. Yeah.
Because interestingly, whenever I've spoken to financial brokers, they've always said, and it's interesting that you say that you think that cap that 20,000 might still be in place for those over 65, is that there's generally encouragement, I think is the right word, that when you're over the age of 65, you should actually probably start unwinding some of your investment in stocks and shares because of that, consolidating what you've made.
Yeah, I suppose you're more at risk of the short-term fluctuations at that point. And if there is significant events like the budgets being announced and things that have these impact on stocks and share values in the markets, then you are at risk if you are going to need to access that in the short term. It's only if you can have the luxury of leaving it to balance out, as it were, across multiple years.
Because a large part of the first-time buyer market, or even maybe people upsizing market, is helped out by the bank of mum and dad.
Right.
I guess if people are taking their assets apart to help the next generation, that'd have an impact on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Welcome back. We have had information given to us thick and fast, and there has been a lot in the world of property tax changes. So we thought the 5 of us should come together and actually start going through some of the things that have been unveiled. Marti, kick us off. What have we got?
So first one, and it's not going to apply to a huge amount of people probably watching this now, but it even so, we've got this mansion tax, which I think everyone has probably heard about.
Yeah, it's on bingo.
Oh, it was on bingo.
Yeah, there we go. Mansion tax off.
Whether it was leaked or not, but it's certainly been discussed, I think, publicly, hasn't it? And even the amount which they're talking about being over 2 million, that was the amount that I'd heard about, 2 million. Yeah. So no huge changes there. And from what I can see, they're talking about that coming in from April 28. So we've still got a couple of years anyway.
So plenty of time for people to sell their mansions.
Exactly. Yeah, so you might be busy.
You might be very busy. And you might be moving them.
We're more than happy to move out into a little 2-bed,
Anyone needs
2
an
up, 2
estate
down.
agent, removals, you know where to go. So yeah, I think that's quite an interesting one. But having said that, probably not something that's going to affect a huge amount of people. But nevertheless, it's there. Just jumping back to that mansion tax, so because that one isn't actually, even though if it's it is still a few years off. I was just reading on it, and it's basically saying those charges would range from 2,500 for a 2 million home to 7,500 for a 5 million plus home, expected to raise over 400 million.
Is that per year?
Well, that bit I'm assuming so because it's a levy, so I'm assuming it is. But yeah, good question. I don't know.
On top of your council tax?
Yeah, it sounds like it to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I've read some things that they would take this via council tax in the
I
same
read
way.
That. Yeah.
And there was something around council tax banding being reviewed as well to see if more or less will pop into this new valuation. So
And I wonder who does the valuations.
well, I think this has been a hotly discussed topic.
Is it someone from the council who just pops down on their bike to figure it out?
It would have to be a
I was
going to say a Rick's chartered surveyor or something, wouldn't it? Yeah.
I mean, the cost of that alone would be quite something, isn't it?
Yeah,
to have that done.
I was going to say, if you're 18 and you don't know what to do, maybe become a surveyor really quickly. There's work for you.
Yeah, completely agree.
That is going to make, again, it's a wealth tax, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's a way of taxing the wealthy.
Yeah.
And I know I've had this conversation with people, is how people use their personal money doesn't necessarily make them wealthy.
No.
It's a very philosophical debate about money and the psychology of money, and I always feel comfortable because obviously being with accountants, it's quite straightforward. It's not an emotional.
No. Yeah.
It's not an emotional topic for us.
Yeah.
But you look at some of those things, and if you've had a family home that you have lived in, like you say, from boy to man, it's going to be quite sad having to say goodbye to it because you can't afford it when you've bought it.
Yeah, that's very true.
It's like going out and buying something and then paying tax on it every year after you've bought
There's
it.
a big portion of the market that is property rich and cash poor. Because
I've actually got a few clients like that, and they've just been in a house for years, decades, like you say. Yeah, and it cost nothing when they got it. Maybe left it by mum and dad, like you said. I think you said too, Josh. And now it's like actually they can't even afford to upkeep that house. Which is really sad, isn't it? And this is not going to help that in any way.
A question for you, and I don't know how it works. If you've got farm land and you're a farmer, does the property on, because there's usually a lot of property on farming estates.
You normally have sort of an agricultural tied building home to it as such.
Would this feature in that, or does it get associated with the land?
What the mansion tax? I don't know actually, Emma, to be honest. I think that's a good question, something to find out, but I don't know enough to know quite whether it would
it'd be great to get the detail eventually, because that could be a double whammy for farmers potentially.
I'd be surprised, but I don't know. Yeah, good question. I think that's when we'll find out. And in fact, maybe if we have another quick pause, we can try and see if we can get a little bit more detail on it. Okay. One that I'm quite interested to talk about, because I think this will affect a lot of my clients anyway, and probably all of us here too, or most of us here too, is this increase that they've announced on dividend tax.
Yes.
So at the moment, you can earn up to essentially 50,000 and pay 8.75% tax on the dividend income, and then 33.75% above that, and then up to 39% above that. And they're adding 2% to each of those thresholds. Yeah. So that is something that's going to affect certainly anyone with a business that remunerates themselves via dividend. And I wasn't expecting it.
Oh, I think it was.
Was it on our bingo?
I think it's on bingo.
Oh, it wasn't on my bingo.
Yeah. I think we have it somewhere, and now I can't see it for looking. Can you see
it? I think what we thought is they were more likely to do something with, we put here, dividend allowance cut. Is that what you were thinking?
Yes.
Whereas I didn't expect to actually see an increase in thresholds, in the actual rates,
I mean, they've made that first step, haven't they, to bringing it closer to in line with income tax thresholds for salaries, etc.
Yeah.
And I think that's obviously their end goal, is to bring them in line with those. And like you say, everyone that's been able to take advantage of those savings through remuneration through dividends at the lower rates in comparison are obviously going to notice that big step where they're taking the same amount of salary, or in this instance in dividends, and having to pay that extra 2%.
Exactly,
And I think with it, there's not going to necessarily be a backlash or outcry from a specific group, because lots of people get a dividend income from various different sources.
Yeah, it's true,
I know that probably the majority of us who are business owners probably do take the vast amount of their salary via dividend. So everyone is probably going to pay an extra 2% as of next April. On top of, and speaking as a business owner, I already pay a large amount of corporation tax as well. So this is after corporation tax. So if you're a business like mine that's consultancy, that usually is just me and a couple of others, it's going to be a case of whatever you make is actually what you've made yourself. So now whatever I've made after I've paid the corporation tax, I'm now going to pay an extra 2%.
It's going to cost you more
pleasure of working.
I'm surprised by it. I didn't think that was one they were going to do, but I don't know whether it's that perception again that people who are receiving dividends are
wealthy. Yeah, I think
which
it comes
is
back
not
to
true at all. As you say, you have a small business owner who could be earning exactly the same as someone on a salary working for someone else, and it's just the way that they're paying themselves. So I think it seems a little bit the word is unfair.
It leads to that inevitable re-evaluation on a case-by-case basis of what is the most tax-efficient way to take those profits from the company. Will it be an increase?
That's very true, and we will redo all our calculations for everyone.
I was going to say, your phones will get very hot in about the next half an hour. Exactly.
Just give us a day or two, please. No, we will, and we do that every budget, obviously, when they announce these sort of changes. Is we do, obviously, the comparison, I suppose, between dividend and salary, and make sure that it's still more tax efficient to take what we normally refer to as the lowest salary and then dividends up to basic rate or up to the higher rate. So we will read all of those and see whether we're still at the right levels with those.
Fantastic.
And let our clients know. So I was surprised by that one.
It's a bit of a bittersweet moment for me because I'll be paying more tax, but I guess owning your own business rather than being an employee is now become less lucrative. I mean, if you can actually use that word, I'm not sure if that's the right one. For small business owners, therefore they'll be less incentivised to have that company, probably more likely to sell.
Yeah,
from a selfish perspective, then I'll hopefully be that company that would buy those smaller companies.
Isn't it?
That's it, to grow by acquisition.
Yeah. Well, that's a positive thing out of it.
For me, yeah, but for the wider economy, I don't think it's going to be great.
No, I don't think so, because any increase like that is normally felt hard, isn't it?
I know you and I have, we did a series about dividends and people taking dividends.
Yeah.
And, there are some people that just plough everything back into their business just to give it another year, give it another 2 years.
Yeah.
So they're not taking much now. And again, I think there's this kind of wild perception that if you are getting dividends or you are, you're somehow wealthy, and the understanding of wealth, I think, has shifted. And I think what's really interesting is how people live their lives now are not as ideologically straight as the governments or the party politics would like it to be.
Yeah.
That whole working class, middle class, upper class.
Yeah.
That really doesn't exist.
No, agree.
Yeah. And you can see that in lots of different walks of life now, and I think their ideology maybe hasn't necessarily caught up to what that means in terms of wealth and what wealth means in the modern age.
Yeah, I think you're right with that. I agree.
So what's next?
Well, there were a couple of other bits that we have already talked about, but again, we just got a little bit more detail, and obviously there's going to be more detail that we'll get post this, but we talked about this sort of paper mile for electric cars. I didn't know what they were talking about in terms of value on that paper mile, but it looks like 3p per mile, and that will be from April 28, although it does say rising with inflation. So that obviously gives us the data of when it's going to come in and some sort of actual figure now that we can go, so if you do X amount of miles, we'll be paying 3p a mile on that journey. Yeah. How they'll then monitor that, I don't know, but they've got time to think on that.
Maybe done on the MOT of the car, so it's annual MOT.
I suppose,
could be done then, but
I heard that you pay an estimate, and then each year probably tied in with that, then you'll do a kind of a catch up or whichever way with it. So you'll say I'm going to do 12,000 miles, and that's what it would be based on. Then you see how many you do.
And this is sort of aligned really with the gradually increasing benefit in kind rates of these electric vehicles.
Exactly. They're going up 1% each year.
And they're obviously now bringing this in to plug that gap that they've lost through decreased use of petrol and diesel vehicles.
Yeah, exactly. I think totally agree with that, Declan. I suppose maybe they didn't think about what they were going to lose by plugging electric cars so much, and maybe it's sort of become a reality what they've lost on
initial shift
fuel
to
duty and
that change.
Exactly.
And now they're suffering financially as a result of it.
Something that I was saying to a friend the other day was, though, the whole move to EV and the environmental benefits for it. I remember maybe 2005, 2008 that this government push for diesel. Diesel was better than petrol.
I remember that.
And everyone was go out, get a diesel car, we'll give you I think there was an allowance to scrap your petrol car.
I remember that.
Do you remember that?
I do actually, because we bought diesel.
Exactly. And then it almost was like the automotive industry then got to the cusp of they couldn't penetrate the market anymore, and then suddenly diesel cars are all bad. And now EV cars, they're here to save us. And what have we seen? Lots of tax breaks, lots of really good incentives for people to swap because they've made it better. And now we've got to the crescendo. There's no more EV cars to be sold, or the market is slowing, and guess what we're now going to do? We're now going to find another way to tax you. I don't want to sound like a conspiratorial thinker, but
you sound a little bit.
There's a pattern, though.
There is a pattern.
There is a pattern, and 3p. That's huge.
That's
it is huge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you have EV cars in your business?
No, but it's something we have talked about, and I guess it would make you now reconsider whether it's the right thing
Yeah,
to
you'd
do.
certainly have to give it another thought now, I think. And I would certainly, it's another thing when I'm talking about Electricast clients, it's another thing to make sure they're aware, even if it's not until April 28th, it's another thing to think about.
Yeah.
Which is going to sway the decision.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to reduce any potential saving.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, who knows what the cost of power will be at that point?
Great question.
Is that in 2-3 years' time?
Yeah, that's very
Hopefully, the crisis in Russia and Ukraine have quietened down.
Yeah.
Quite.
Like things a bit more stable.
a bit more
Power's
stable, yeah.
cheaper, perhaps. Hopefully, so maybe one will offset the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
that. Yeah. Okay. Another one we talked about was the salary sacrifice on the pensions, which we keep coming back to.
Can I ask a question on the salary sacrifice? And again, this is me making up tax law, I think. But if you give it to a charity...
What salary sacrifice?
Yeah,
a charitable donation?
Yeah. Do you think that would impact that cap?
Well, this is specifically talking about pensions.
Right,
this 2,000. So I don't think it's necessarily affecting all salary sacrifice.
Right,
it does seem to be on the pension. Has anyone heard any different?
No, I agree, yeah.
Only seems to be about pension. And basically what it's saying is that the definition of salary sacrificing, are you giving up some of your salary so you're not paying NI essentially on it, and same for the employer. I think what it's saying is that you'd still can do more than that, but you'd give up more, you'd be paying NI on anything above the 2,000.
Okay.
Yeah, and for the employer too.
Yeah.
They'd obviously be paying NI on anything above 2,000, so you can still do it. Yes. I suppose is the key.
Yeah, you can still do it, but there's going to be a tax implication.
Yeah, exactly that. And I suppose as a business, you'd still get that corporation tax relief on the actual contribution, but you will then have NI to pay on it above that. So, that was just a little bit further.
So will this
more information on that
impact both the employer and the employee?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because essentially that is the way it works. Because you're sacrificing some of your salary, it's just like you hadn't had that bit, so there's no NI essentially on it. So that's the same for employee and employer national insurance. So it will affect both.
Wow. Yeah. There are going to be people in that 100 to 120 bracket that are not going to be happy with this.
Yeah, and lower than that too, who just, are more focused on pensions, which is obviously very topical. And I see it with my clients. Some are very pension-led, others don't have faith in pensions. It's very mixed bag across, but it is going to affect everyone. Yeah. At all levels, I think. Yeah. So that was a little bit more on that one. I think the ISA allowance, I think you probably covered everything that I can see on that, Declan, quite well. Couldn't see anything further on that. One we haven't talked about is this 2-child benefit cap being scrapped. Yeah. So that's essentially, they bought it, and I don't know how many years ago it was.
I think it was 2017, I read.
Oh, interesting. Where if you had more than 2 children, they wouldn't give you child benefit for any more than 2 children, so it was capped at that. And that is being scrapped, I would assume from April 26, aimed at reducing child poverty. So personally, I think that's a good thing. Yeah, no, I don't disagree. Oddly, it's one of those welfare policies that quite a lot of people agree with. It is, which has been really interesting watching that in the news. That actually the majority of people are actually in favour. Oh, what, of scrapping it? No, of keeping it. Yeah, and I get that too, because it's the age old. Well, it's not fair, is it? It's your choice if you have more children. I completely get that too. But I suppose as a mum, I've then got the other side of me that goes, well, I just want all children to be okay and have enough money. Do you think? So I'm a bit torn, accountant mum. With this, do you think this will encourage people to have more children? I don't think it will. Like, James, do you want some more children? Just because you can get
no, I don't. I have 4, and that's more than enough,
Would that have made any impact on your decision to have more children? None. It wouldn't have made any impact on your decision? I don't think it will for anyone else, really. No. But obviously it's going to have quite a cost.
2's enough, but it wasn't impacted by that policy.
But maybe there are people, I don't know, and there's going to be a big cost to it. I don't know what it says. Estimated cost here, 2.3 to 3 billion. Yeah. That is a huge cost, and I totally understand there will be people who are very anti that, because that's coming from the other tax increases. The pot that they're trying to... exactly. Yeah. And I totally understand that too.
But whether we end up seeing more from a personal tax point of view, having more clients fall foul of the high benefit charge as a result of this, where they've got the scope to claim more through additional children, but shouldn't be based on their income position and then get penalised by the high income.
Which is now up to 60,000, I think, isn't it? So if you're earning more than 60,000, between 60 and 80,000, and you've claimed full child benefit, then you essentially have to pay back. Claw back. And it would be a percentage of wherever your earnings are between 60 and 80,000.
It's a really interesting one. Years ago, I worked with somebody that had child benefit in place, and they did a lot of overtime because we were doing a huge project. And I remember coming in Monday and him saying to me, I'm really sorry, but I can't do any more overtime. And I was like,
because he doesn't want to earn above
why? He goes, well, I didn't realise that every time I earned more, my wife's child benefit got reduced. So I'm not being there for bedtime, and we've got less money. And so, interestingly, I didn't realise that happened. Not having children myself, I'm not au fait with the tax laws around it. But that again, we talk about being business owners and being aspirational, but actually, how do you get out of that loop? So a family that is on quite a low income,
I get that,
doing extra work so that they could afford to take the kids away on a summer holiday, and then it's being clawed back. And there's this weird, it just felt really counterproductive that actually you can understand why people end up like a spider in a jar. Because what is the point of trying if it's just going to be taken away from you? And I don't know, and that's the working people. That's not, the wealthy or the super rich. It's going to be really interesting to see how the markets react to all of this.
Completely agree. There was one final, not final point, but it was just...
because I've got one.
Oh, good. It was what I said to you, actually, James. Higher taxes on gambling firms.
Oh. Fantastic.
I know nothing about... I don't particularly know anything about gambling firms, but that seems a sensible, logical thing.
James, it feels like you've got a story to share.
No, I don't have a story. It's just the scourge of the high street. And
to you, it just makes sense.
Absolutely. I don't think all businesses are equal.
Okay.
And certainly a business where the house always wins and takes money away from people that are a bit gullible, unfortunately, should be taxed at a much higher rate.
And we've seen them be so successful in recent years. I mean, the profits that they're turning over. So it's certainly an industry that needed looking at.
You don't see them fail, do you?
No, that's true.
I'm also going to say you don't really see bookmakers in super wealthy areas either.
No, because as you say, actually, James, it is looking for maybe the more vulnerable.
Preying on the vulnerable.
And how
so
much
that was
does
just
raise?
a little bit.
Just
raising
$1 billion?
1 billion.
That seems quite low. I don't know. I've never actually, ventured into the world of gambling, but that does feel like a low raise somehow. But okay.
Yeah, completely agree. I don't think I had anything else there.
Okay.
Over to you.
Well, I've potentially got some good news.
Oh, okay.
We'll cut through all the negative stuff.
Yeah, certainly welcome a bit of that.
Exactly. Well, I think Declan, you're a little bit old for this, but just
a little bit old.
Apprenticeships. Funding for under 25 apprenticeships will be free for SMEs.
Okay, I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, so do I.
Yes, brilliant. Fantastic.
Yeah. And is that something that will affect you, James?
Absolutely.
Do you take apprentices?
Yeah, we do. But the rules have always been very complex. But if this is just a blanket free over the age of 25, then wonderful. That just makes things so much easier for us.
To the age of 25?
Under 25.
Exactly, yeah. So under 25, then that'd be. I think it was under 21 before. Yeah. So wonderful.
Just widening that net a bit.
Yeah, because you've got an apprentice story, which I'm just wondering, is now the time to ask Sam to maybe come and tell us his apprentice story while we're...
Should we do you want a 2-minute pause?
I tell you what, we're going to go to break. We're going to get Sam, who's our apprentice, who's got a very impressive
he's
story.
Qualified now.
He's qualified now, but he's been through the apprentice journey. But he has a lovely piece of good news. So anybody that is young and worried that they might not be able to be successful, hold that thought. We're going to bring you someone young and successful.
Okay.
Welcome back, and we have our last surprise guest, Marti. Who have we got with us?
I thought you can say I was the last surprise.
Yeah, you're the surprise.
I've been here all day, Emma. We have got Sam, one of my colleagues, who is joining us. And Sam did the apprenticeship to qualify as a chartered accountant with Morris Palmer. And he qualified this year, a few months ago.
Yeah, August.
So congratulations on that, Sam.
Oh, thank you very much.
And I thought Sam's quite an interesting demographic because he's just qualified, obviously, as an accountant, but he also bought his first house last year, which is really exciting. And therefore, you're, in that kind of exciting young demographic where different things might be important to you. Do you know what I mean? It's just slightly different maybe to us as business owners. It's a different things that you're looking at. So from your point of view, was there anything in the budget that you heard that you were interested by, not interested by, liked, didn't like?
Well, obviously there is the sort of new levy that's hit for high value properties, which I know I have just bought a house. It's not quite that valuable, so that doesn't affect me.
But I like that you're thinking to the, up there.
That did surprise me that sort of thing would sort of impact the high value properties. So I knew that they were planning on hitting sort of the rental market and increasing tax on rental properties, but just high value properties in general was a surprise for me.
Yeah.
That, and also, not that this is specifically tax related, but the changes that are planned for council tax brackets, the fact that they're raising that. That will, I think, affect me a little bit, which was a bit of a surprise, but it makes sense.
Down the line, I suppose, isn't it? As things are rebranded,
absolutely, as things change over time.
Yeah.
But no,
Was there one personal one, Sam?
Okay, yes.
That most of us would not have probably thought much about.
No, we haven't got a card on it, but I know it's happened.
Yeah, the sugar tax on milkshakes and iced coffees and that sort of thing. Yeah, that's going to hit close to home.
And I'm just going to say, I'm going to tell Emma, and anyone that's listening, Sam has a particularly sweet tooth.
Yes.
Right.
When I met Sam, I couldn't believe, because I have a sweet tooth, but I pay the price for my sweet tooth. Sam doesn't pay that price. But he has, like, the sweetest tooth that I've ever met. And there was something I know you were dreading, and I think it's happened.
Well, we knew it was one of the things we did know in advance, to be fair. I've already kind of gone through some of the stages of grief here.
Okay.
But no, it was like a, not headline increase, but like the sort of sugar tax increase, because you've got a tax behaviour that you don't want to encourage.
Yeah,
and obviously,
you're right,
that's the place that you're going to put it.
Yeah.
So it was something that we were anticipating, tax on things like that. And also I've seen there's a gambling sort of tax of like increase.
Do you gamble at all?
Personally, not very much, but but that sort of thing where you're disencouraging.
I know what you mean. The things that behaviour that you don't want to encourage, I suppose.
Because similar to like that with the ISA changes, how they've, because I used an ISA.
That will impact you.
That I do have an ISA savings account, and specifically because I am a bit more risk averse than a lot of other accountants here, to be fair, I have a cash ISA. So that change does actually impact me because they want to encourage people to invest in the stock market. They want to encourage you to use stocks and shares ISA.
Would you risk it? Would you start dabbling as a homeowner?
Yes.
You're quite far down the journey compared to most people, aren't you? Because can I ask how old you are?
I'm 25. 26 soon, but 25.
Amazing.
Which is amazing. Well, brilliant, isn't it? To have bought a house, qualified, and done all those really exciting things.
Yeah. And now you've got money to spend on the extra sugar tax.
Oh, absolutely, yes. That's what I'm going to have to set a separate account, I think.
A new budget for.
Absolutely.
Or, you know what you could do? You could take the money you would have spent on the sugary drinks and put them in the stock market and see what returns you more.
Yeah, that also works. I've got a lot of options open to me now. The world's my oyster. But no, I can imagine people. The thing is, you've got to educate yourself about it, obviously, and that is a bit of a tricky thing.
With the ISA,
with the ISAs and the stocks and shares, because I think that the stock market and sort of being risk averse, people with pensions, you get asked at the start, how risk averse are you? But a lot of people don't really know what that means.
No.
And having this thing where a lot of people are encouraged to put money into ISAs, you get told, you don't get taxed on the interest you make from this, but now you're going to look at it and think, this is risky, this is scary.
Yeah.
I think a lot of young people might just need to sort of be told more about what this could mean for them.
That's interesting, because you're a young person who will find out those things on your own accord.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't have, they're not able to maybe do that on their own. So will they be able to find out
that's the thing. It's just a case of like, and I'm uniquely positioned because I do work in finance.
That's true.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's true. You're already interested.
Yeah, exactly. You're interested. You read things. You look at the right things, don't you? But not everyone will have that available to them, I suppose.
No. But it is just a case to see how effective this will be if it does actually get people to put the money in the stocks and shares ISA, or if they will be scared by it and then they just will invest less optimally, I suppose.
And well, you're like you say, you're a prime case of that then, because you were cash, and it's will you now go stocks and shares?
And I think I likely will now.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. Quick question, just maybe top tips, because you are very unique, because we're always being told... Very unique, Sam. We're always being told young people can't afford houses, they can't afford to get on the property ladder, and you seem to have somehow busted that myth and done that. Massive kudos.
Thank you.
How did you go about it, if you can share, or like top tips for young people saving? Like, how did you do it? Because there's a secret sauce I'm sure a lot of young people would love to know.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, one of the sad things is I was being very thrifty. But I was
There's
living
nothing wrong with thrift.
No, that's good. If that's what enabled you to put money aside and save.
Really, it was just being very goal oriented. So my fiance and I, we were living together. We were renting a flat together, and had been doing so for a couple of years. And it was our tenancy we thought might get taken away from us, because we knew that they could charge more rent if they brought in a new tenant rather than us. Like any other tenant would be more beneficial for the landlord than us. Yeah. So that kind of scared us a little bit and made us really start working towards it. So then it was just a case of going to a mortgage advisor and figuring out where we were at now and comparing that to where we needed to be. And
so you did that early?
Yes, we did do that very early. Yes,
I like that, because a lot of people wouldn't do that until they're like, I'm ready to do something.
Or I've got a pot of money. What can I get for
but
it?
you were like, we're here. What do we need to do to get here? That's interesting.
It was. I think it was about a year and a half between us having just that first meeting at just a mortgage advisory.
That is interesting. I don't think many people do that.
No, I don't think they do.
But did you have a deposit already kind of started, or was that a year and a half from the chat to buying?
I already had a lot in savings. I don't really spend a whole lot, but again, this is just the thriftiness side of things, really. But no, I did have a large pool of savings, and I'd been using a lifetime ISA, which I guess, yes, which if you are a young person watching, I do highly recommend you use one of those. You get the sort of £1,000.
So you got your 25%.
Absolutely, yes.
So we've been so £1,000 a year.
Yes, and my partner had been using that as well. So between the two of us, we'd gotten an extra £6,000 from the government.
That's
by the time
isn't it?
So that's something that I recommend to most people I know, and now I can recommend it to other people. So we just had that, and was just sort of thinking what we can do to get from here to there. I sort of spoke to Marti about it, sort of in terms of what I could be doing more at Morris Palmer. I know my fiance then sort of tried working more hours, because she works on a 0-hour contract, so she just sort of had to perform more work. But it was more just finding out what we needed to be at and saying, okay, well, let's now actually work on doing the steps to get us from here to there.
I think the key that I take from that is you had a plan.
Yes.
You put a plan together, and you worked through those steps of the plan. And that, I think that's really unusual, but really quite remarkable actually, for young people to do that and be so strict with themselves to do that.
It's just a case of understanding where, understanding your situation and just gaining an understanding of where you need to be, and not wallowing in the difficulty of it, really, because it is very hard. It wasn't easy.
Pretty overwhelming.
But it's just a case of, we knew that it was possible if we took the steps, and so we just really tried our hardest to achieve that, and we eventually did.
And I think we can extrapolate that philosophy for business as well. Have a plan. If you've got a business plan and you follow it and you're laser focused, success will come. It's been proven that 33% of businesses with a business plan are likely to be more successful than those that aren't. That's why having a plan, having a goal, working relentlessly towards it allows people to be successful.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. Well, Sam, thank you very much for sharing your journey.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on and being brave, because live TV is not easy. I think Marti and I can attest to this now after a few hours.
Yeah, I don't think I can complain very much, having only been here for this. You're the real soldiers.
Welcome back. So Rachel has spoken. We know what was in. We know what was out. Have we received any clarity or closure? Maybe not. I think the devil is in the detail, as they say. So as we come to the end of our live budget special, I thought we'd just wrap up with some final thoughts. So let's start with Josh. Final thoughts.
I think probably better than I feared it might be. I think all the paralysis through uncertainty that we've seen in my line of work over the last sort of 2 or 3 months probably wasn't needed, and I think the delay of moving it back from end of October, say to end of November, just furthered that. And then obviously, if it had been worse, then obviously you got December and Christmas immediately afterwards. So I think there's nothing there that will impact greatly the day-to-day buyer or seller in the Horsham market, unless you're buying at much higher levels. I think probably quite reassured, which I didn't think I'd be saying when we started this earlier today. So, yeah.
Brilliant. James?
What an anticlimax. So disappointing. No, but I think good in a way. I think the anticipation, the lead up to this will have a much deeper impact to the economy, the budget itself, all the speculation. What a shame.
Yeah.
Almost.
But it's just a bit unnecessary, wasn't it?
Yes.
What is the cost of the opportunity that has been lost in them delaying the budget by a month?
Yeah, agree.
But that being said, small business owners are going to get clobbered, and I think some of them are already struggling. I know people personally that are already struggling, and now all of a sudden they're going to have less money coming to their home, and it's going to make their small business less viable to them, which is a real shame.
Yeah.
Okay. I think my main takeaway was more of the sort of the mixed messages that are being sent by the policies they're introducing. On the one hand, encouraging investment through, for example, less cash ISA allowances and more towards the stocks and shares. But then on the other hand, they're increasing dividend tax rates. So that's not sending the right message for people that potentially have the key to stimulating the economy and growing things. So. Not quite sure where it sits with me at this stage, I think.
Marti?
On the whole, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, I think, for the general public and I suppose my clients as well. But the big one for my clients would be the increase in the dividend tax, and that's obviously the one that we're going to spend the time now going through and talking with them, looking at how much their tax is going to increase by, and looking at those comparisons of dividend versus salary, which we've talked about a lot before. So I think that's really the only real policy that's probably going to affect the bulk of our clients. Obviously the others, this paper, mild electric cars coming in, it will have an effect on some, but it's not across the board. And some of these sort of wealth taxes, again, won't affect too many. So, that's the take home for me. Not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but there is going to be an impact on our clients with the dividend tax.
Yeah, I mean, I completely echo everything everyone has said. I don't think it's as bad as I thought it was going to be when I woke up this morning. Yeah. I certainly don't understand what the delay in the budget has been. I think that's been completely unnecessary. I actually think they've inadvertently caused more damage than good with all the speculation. Actually.
So, as you say, a lot of lost spending because people just weren't doing anything.
We've definitely had people not take action.
Do you think?
Yeah. 100%. October and November are normally good months.
Yeah, same here.
But October and November quietened.
We've had board meetings, which is strategy, like I said at the beginning, was we're going to wait and see what happens in the budget first.
And they could have just done whatever, couldn't they?
But there was nothing in there that really would have been too bad. No. I think there has been some stealth. I think they've come for business again, but they've done it maybe a little bit more subtly than they did last year. And like I said, when we've got the detail, when we've got the understanding, I think business owners might be scratching their heads.
Yeah.
And for those of you that are, if those of you that are looking at this going, this hasn't been wonderful for me, speak to your accountant. If you think your accountant is rubbish, speak to Marti and Declan because they're awesome.
Oh, thank you, Emma.
You're welcome. And if you're looking at your business going, I don't have a strategy, I don't have a plan, I'm not sure what my business should be doing, give me a call. I'd be more than happy to help you. And then I guess until next budget. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.